Welcome to our Cybersafe Digest weekly podcast, episode 24. Each week, we will unfold the most recent cyber attacks and will provide you with valuable insights on how to shield your business from these threats, along with practical steps and tips to enhance your cybersecurity.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the Cybersafe Digest, episode 24. I'm Martin Roberts, Managing Director of Neuways. I'm here with my colleague,
Toby Stevenson, Chief Technology Officer at Neuways.
Okay, the danger of this episode, folks, it is aimed at people who are responsible for IT, for SMEs, SMBs, is that this might sound like a 20-minute, 25-minute advert, and it really isn't. We're going to talk about the why a managed cybersecurity service for your business is a good idea, depending on the size of your business, of course. But, you know, I get enormously frustrated, and I've talked about this before, about the way the spend of an organization on IT has changed over the last 10 years or so. It used to be, Toby, that we were helping people spend money on projects which moved the business forward. It'd be investments in new systems, in new hardware, maybe ERP systems and things like that.
Yeah, improvement projects.
Absolutely. Genuinely discretionary spending. You budgeted for it a year ahead, and then you went through a process of spending it. And you looked at the return on investment of it. Nowadays, a significant amount of that money, in fact, quite a lot of that money, is now diverted to non-discretionary spending. It's about keeping yourself safe. And there's two ways of keeping yourself safe. There's one, do it yourself, which is going out and buying various bits of software or various services, or by relying on a third party potentially doing that service for you and looking after your cybersecurity for you. Now, you know, let's make no bones about it. It's part of the service that we offer. But why should somebody do it? Why should somebody spend their hard-earned money on a third party service to manage their cybersecurity for them? One of the reasons, of course, is the statistics relating to cyber attacks globally are just quite horrendous. You've got some figures there, Toby?
Yeah, I have, and focusing primarily on SMBs. So focus of these stats, and I'm sure that a lot of the listeners would consider themselves to be a small to medium-sized business. And it's particularly important, particularly in this country. I don't have the exact number, but SMBs contribute significantly to the financial stability of this country.
Absolutely.
And anything that impacts SMBs on a large scale, such as a cyber attack, could have a real damaging effect on our economy.
And that's actually, I'll just interject there, because what is becoming clearer is there's a move in government generally to make sure that people like us have appropriate qualifications and certifications and badges to say, hey, you achieved a certain level of service and around cybersecurity, because that small business sector, the SME, SMB, needs to be protected as well as any other business.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, it kind of comes back to one of the comments you made at the beginning of this podcast around, what should you do, how should you do it, and there's kind of this do it yourself, and then there's this partner with somebody, and the problem with do it yourself is that it's difficult. Doing cyber stuff well is quite hard, because it's a different set of skills to people that build PCs and servers and look after databases and things like that. It's a different set of skills. So it's very time sensitive.
Yeah.
If the database server is down for a day because you're busy trying to fix it, you can kind of quantify what that means. You can get your head around it, but you can't wait a day to solve a cyber alert that comes in or check into it, because it could be the end of the network if you don't react to it quickly. And that's one of the big problems with doing it yourself, is how do you build out a robust enough stack with enough visibility and response capability?
Yeah, and but actually the time to do anything about it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're running a business.
Exactly. So enterprises.
Yeah.
Barclays Bank have probably got hundreds of people in their cybersecurity team,
at least,
who are looking at alerts, chasing them down. Most of them being false positives. They're not dangerous things, but you can't forego that investigation. So all of that stuff takes time, and it's why a lot of SMBs, when they start to level up their cybersecurity, speak to a respected partner. So somebody that they've worked with in the past, usually, the people that perhaps give them IT support, and then can you do our cybersecurity? And that then kind of comes on to the point you were talking around the certification and the capabilities of that third party, of that IT provider. And it's what the government are trying to bolster up and build out to. Because it's very easy for a service where I say, we know how to install antivirus, we can manage that for you. And that's not really what you need. It's a different set of skills. It's someone that can look at your defense posture. What are you exposing? Where are your risks? How do you address for those? How do you monitor those? How do you respond to those in a timely fashion? And I think what the government are trying to do is take away a lot of the pretenders. There's a lot of people out there that fake it till they make it, and they say that we can do X, Y, and Z, and they're hoping that perfect storm of bad thing happening and doesn't occur, because it's about the odds of it happening. Russian roulette, spinning the wheel, whatever. And I think that's what the government is trying to do there, is basically say, okay, well, anyone that is going to be providing security services to a critical part of our economy has to be able to not just talk the talk, but they also have to walk the walk.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a really important thing. So when we look at where the risks and the dangers are, obviously we hear about things like ransomware all the time.
Yes.
And ransomware covers a multitude of sins as to how it starts, how it happens. There are other threats as well. And I think the danger is that there is a danger that you become too focused on one particular type of problem, or you focus particularly on making sure that you've got all the right bits of software and all the right bits of hardware, and you don't think about how they're configured or how they're monitored, or what you look like, how attractive you look to an attacker.
Well, interestingly enough, I mean, we talked about this a little bit, I think, in episode 22, regarding it's all right having all these services and all these alerts, but if you don't actually look at and do something about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we touched on that, and names were omitted to spare blushes. But it's really true. I'm a firm believer there's no point in logging and alerting all this information if you're not going to do anything with it. So, and again, that's where that paradigm shift occurs from doing it in-house. Because you can do it in-house, absolutely, but you have to build a team, and you have to have the right software in place. So it's not just the protection software, but you also have to have software that can aggregate all of the data that's coming out of that, so you can see it, and that ends up being really, really expensive.
So the truth be told, I mean, it's like any complicated service. Having a provider that looks after many people reduce the cost per user, and the likelihood is they'll do the job really well. Now, I suspect there's probably people out there who potentially don't do the job really well.
And that's what this government initiative will be, is to try and kick the cowboys out and make sure that people that are doing it actually are fit to be doing the job, because people put in their trust in these organizations, and they need to be able to respond and behave in an appropriate way.
And there's also a level of recognition within the industry. So we're an MSP. We provide this service, but we don't provide it directly. We don't have a team of analysts sitting there looking at lots of threats. We use a professional service which is provided by one of our trusted providers, and we work very closely with them, and it's an effective aggregator service, and that works very well. We resell it.
We partner with we have a trusted cybersecurity partner that we work with. They help us do a lot of the heavy lifting. What that means is that we can then bring to bear the combined force of over 250 people to monitor your environment.
So we architect the solution for people, and we say this is as part of the whole service that we give you, and it's part of our MSP service. I told you it's an advert, folks, sorry. But then we monitor these people, we evaluate these services, and then we choose the right partner.
And the key thing is that they are an extension of our capability. So where we spoke earlier about the likes of Barclays having hundreds, thousands of people in the cybersecurity team, and they're all chasing alerts down every day, and most of them come to nothing. That's what our partner does. When something bad's happening, if it's really, really bad, then they take action. They're empowered to take action on our behalf, because time is of the essence if an attack is currently underway. But if not, they come to us and say, we've seen this and it requires further investigation. And so we then take it to our customer and say, well, we've seen this on this machine or these machines, and this is happening, and can you explain? And they'll say, oh yeah, this is Dave or John doing something, and we expect it, or it's got no idea. We don't know what's happening, and we can then take action. But we're leveraging our partner as a force multiplier to do a lot of the heavy lifting of alert filtering, and actually the benefit for our customers is that they still get that same Neuways experience on cybersecurity alerts and events. It's just that we're sharing the work.
Yeah. The thing I always worry about with services which appear almost overnight, it's certainly not true of the cybersecurity area, is that it's not the wheels of a bandwagon creaking into motion. This threat is real. It's
absolutely
increasing. The statistics show that businesses are under threat, and particularly small businesses are, because they're easier to get into and easier to compromise, they're a great target.
Yeah, so the bad guys may not make as much money off them, but we've already established that they perhaps don't always have as sophisticated tooling in place as an enterprise organization. They almost certainly don't have the same level of monitoring and response capability. They may not even have the same level of strategic planning. How are we going to architect our system so it can be cyber resilient? How are we going to monitor our environment to make sure that we don't have misconfigurations, or that we're doing things with best practice? So they are in some ways an easier target because they just don't have the capability of doing these things. So the reward isn't as great, but the ransomware or the threat actors will make up for that by just hitting more.
Volume is always important. So this is a really difficult question to pose, and I don't expect to have the exact answer. But when should you consider working with your MSP, your IT partner, to look at third-party security services? I'm going to answer that a little bit to that, so it depends on what business you're in, I suppose.
Yeah. And whether you've got a track record of having problems.
Yeah.
If you've been hit by ransomware before or more than once, then clearly you need to do more than you're doing today. And it may be that you don't have the capability or the budget or whatever to actually solve for that internally.
What you are effectively buying when you buy into this service, you're paying somebody somewhere or some organization somewhere to monitor your traffic, to monitor your activities, to monitor what's happening on your Microsoft tenant and whatever, looking for patterns and all those things. And they will say, hey, this pattern looks like, I bet it's machine driven to begin with, using AI and things like that, to say, hey, this looks like a threat. Then eventually it gets to a person who goes, yeah, it's a threat, or nah, it's a false positive. How much can somebody expect to pay per user for that sort of service?
Well, there is the question. The answer is, it depends. It depends what needs to be monitored. So an organization that is purely just using 365 and they don't have any on-premise servers and no other fancy infrastructure will pay a much smaller fee than someone that's got lots and lots of servers and lots of applications and lots of...
So let's take the first example. So someone's using only Office 365, using Excel, how much might they pay per month per user?
So
in a range.
So before I answer that, one of the things that we would consider is what does that protection stack need to look like? So we certainly look at endpoint security, which we've touched on previously, being really, really important, particularly in an organization like that, because they typically don't have network perimeter defenses because they don't need them, because they're very agile, mobile, they're non-location centric. So they may not have a defense in depth strategy in the office, and they may not be in the office very often. So robust endpoint security software, really, really important. And that would almost certainly involve some kind of managed EDR solution to monitor behaviors and things like that. So that managed endpoint detection and response as a reminder of the acronym. Then you need something that is looking at your 365 environment. So this type of tooling is particularly looking for suspicious logins, suspicious behavior. So the creation of forwarding rules. So that's one of the things that an attacker will do, is if they manage to compromise your mailbox, is they want to set up all kinds of forwarding rules so they can hide the work that they're doing away from you. And important to alert on those things, because they are great artifacts that suggest that you've been compromised. Depending on the licensing that you've got in 365, you may have the ability to flag on things like unusual travel or unexpected travel and other such things that would suggest something bad is going on.
So now our listeners are really waiting.
They're baited.
Are you ready, folks? So if you are Office 365 with appropriate endpoint security, how much would somebody pay per user per month? And the people aren't going to hold you to this.
Yeah. I think a reasonable figure, bearing in mind that you're paying for tooling and experts to monitor it 24 hours a day.
Sure.
I would think you would be looking to start paying in the region of somewhere between £12 to £20 per user per month for that solution.
So
possibly more, depending on the requirements
and
the
the
tooling that's in use
and such like the business that you're
in, service level that you require. But that's a reasonable ballpark.
Now, the reason I wanted to get to that is because we talk about all this stuff, and as though we talk about the technology, we talk about what it provides, but if you're running a business, the one thing you're looking at is your budgets, and you're looking at, can we actually afford these things? And to establish if we can afford these things is how much it per user per month. We said, £10 to £20 a month per user, which is on top of your Office 365 fee and on top of that. But this is what it costs to run IT in a small medium enterprise, in a small business. And having those figures in mind is really useful. And if you want to protect yourself better than perhaps other people are doing, and again, it's about having the alarm box on the wall outside your house to make sure that you're not going to be attacked and such like in your neighborhood. It's not very neighborly, I know, but there you go. Understanding that figure is quite important. So when you're doing your budgeting for this year, next year, do add that figure in if you can, and try to make it work, because that will give you enhanced protection for your business from a cybersecurity point of view, and it will give you a really good standard.
Yeah, protection, detection, and response capabilities. Absolutely. And the response capability is really around trying to limit the blast radius of anything that does happen, because nothing is 100% effective 100% of the time. So something is always going to get through and happen somewhere. Yes. It's that old trade-off of security versus convenience.
And the thing is, if you want to be a trusted supply chain partner, we worry about infecting our customers. We worry about being infected by our suppliers. Being able to say to people, we talked about in previous episodes about Cyber Essentials, Cyber Essentials Plus. If you want to be, and it contributes to all of this, of course, if you want to be a trusted supply chain partner, up or downstream, then investing in this and showing that you invest in this is a great way of doing that. And it's just the old insurance thing. We're doing this. A good service will hopefully mean you never have to use it in anger. Exactly. It's being used all the time.
Exactly. And kind of building on the point we spoke on a couple of podcasts ago, just having the tools and getting the alerts shouldn't give you the reassurance to sleep soundly.
Yeah.
Those alerts are possibly an artifact of something that is still ongoing in the network. It's just that it's being triggered. So if you don't investigate and have that capability of doing so, as in the anecdote that I gave, eventually you will come a cropper.
Let's talk about a proven example where somebody has got into a network, they've done some stuff. So you look at folder redirection. So that allows people to say, if I receive a message from this person here, go and put it in this folder here.
Yeah.
And you may, as a user, never see that.
Nope.
And therefore you then get to the point of bank payment redirection scams. You see man in the middle attacks and things like that. We've also seen what appear to be, what we know, you and I know, are when configured correctly, backup systems that have been compromised because people have got hold of their credentials as an admin and it's not been locked down properly, and they've traversed the network, they've gone through everything, and they've gone and deleted all the backups. So when they do strike, there's no way back.
Yeah, there's no recourse. Yeah.
All of that stuff could have been spotted by this third-party service, which is offered, because they'd see patterns and they'd recognise
exactly, and somebody will follow the breadcrumbs and say, actually, this has happened.
Yes.
And and the thing around the backups, absolutely, and there'll be things around firewall configuration. Again, industry certification comes in. It'll be making sure that the people that are supplying the support services and the security services are properly equipped to configure those services on your behalf properly, so that they remain robust and resilient in the face of a cyber attack.
Okay, so final word on this one is yes, it is a service worth investing in if you're in industry. or you're a size or whatever, add it to your budget. It's extra cost. It's not, it is discretionary, but probably not as discretionary as we'd like it to be. That's been a really fascinating discussion. Thank you very much. Last week, we broke protocol by doing the acronym of the week first, but we had to, because otherwise the rest of the episode had been fairly meaningless.
Or we'd have just given the game away.
We're giving the game away. This week, it's related to this episode subject area. So it's pronounced SIM,
Yeah.
but it's spelled SIEM.
Yeah.
And I can actually, because it's written here in front of me, and of course I should know this, it's Security Information and Event Management. Go on, Toby, expand SIM.
Fine. So yes, a SIM tool is a huge database where you send all of your log data to it. So everything out of your endpoint security stack and your firewall and your 365, and this all gets pushed into this big database. And there's all these kinds of rules that kind of aggregate it and normalize it and establish patterns.
Okay, so let's just go back one step, because log data, everything that you do on your computer is not just what you do on your computer. It's not just saving a Word document. It's not just typing it. As you're doing that, in the background, there is information being collected to say, oh, these keystrokes have been done, these things have been done, these things have been saved, these things have been altered. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, to a degree. So out of the box, Windows has got some rudimentary logging, which will capture significant changes within the system.
Yeah. Okay.
You can then expand that by increasing what it logs for.
Yes.
And that's a really important thing, because there's certain activities that threat actors use which won't get picked up by the default logs, but if you turn on some extra logging, it will capture those things.
Yeah.
Then when you run things like EDR software, that's where it's then really pulling all of the system behavior telemetry. So every file that's read and written and deleted is recorded. Yeah. Every process that's running, every network interaction is all recorded in there. And all this data, so the native Windows stuff and the stuff from the EDR tool, the logs from the firewall, so the traffic that's coming and going in and out, where it's coming from, where it's going to, what type of traffic it is, if you're running security service, what the security services said, 365, who's logging in, what are they doing, all that kind of stuff. This all gets thrown into this big database, and then they look for patterns of behavior. Yeah. So they look for, so there's certain things. So this is the real one, but yeah, there might be an event code 1234 that if that comes up, that's a sign of something bad happening. Yes. So they'll be looking for that discreetly on its own.
Yeah.
But what they'll also be able to do with the SIM is you'll be able to say, well, actually, if I see event 567 and 1111 together in a close period of time, maybe that's something bad. So independently, they're not very bad, but together they might be synonymous with something more significant. Sure. We can then overlay that with the data that comes in from the EDR tool. So, okay, well, when these events occurred, this other information was captured as well, about files being written and deleted or network locations being captured. And what they allow you to do is build a timeline of activity.
Yeah.
And say, so this is the thing that sparked our interest.
Yeah.
And we can now look at what happens after that, because of what happened before that.
Yeah.
And then you can then build this timeline of a potential incident.
Yeah.
Which then gets given to a human to look at and say, okay, well, this is, I would expect to see this. This is nothing. And, or they might say, actually, this looks pretty bad. Let's do some more investigation.
Okay, so I mean, and this obviously reflects back to the main subject of the podcast today, which is, having a cybersecurity service, because all of that SIM is all that information that's being gathered and analysed is part of that service, or can be part of that service, to make sure that you're protected. Because we talk about we're monitoring this, we're examining this. Actually, the third party that you engage to do this for you, and you pay your between £10 or £20 a month.
Well, yeah, and so as we said, once you start including SIM logging in there, you're factoring in an additional level on there, because there's additional tooling, additional, imagine all the activity on a system times however many systems you've got times a month. That's a lot of events that have to be stored somewhere, and they get kept for a period of time, because you want to be able to look back over history, because of course we know that attacks can sometimes be fairly long-lived. So 3 months of retention is the minimum that is recommended, just to try and identify an attack from backwards from when it's executed to when it first was proliferated. So, but yes, it's part of these services, and when you speak with your security partner, you can establish what tooling and capabilities you actually require today, and then build a plan for what you need for tomorrow.
Brilliant. Okay, well, that's SIM for this week, and that is this episode's conclusion. Thank you very much, Toby. It's been much appreciated. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you, everyone. We've reached the end of episode 24 of our Cybersafe Digest weekly podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and to make sure you don't miss out on our future episodes, hit that subscribe button on Spotify, Apple, or Google Podcast. For more cybersecurity wisdom and resources, head over to our website at cybersafe.co.uk. See you next Thursday.